Hey, everyone online. Thank you so much for joining. Continuous Testing Meetup San Francisco. We got a bunch of people here that are coming in person, and then we got you all online. So thank you all so much for joining. Let people here come in and check out and get settled in. They're grabbing food and some drinks and settling down. So please bear with us for a few minutes as everyone gets set up. Thank you all so much. Looking forward to seeing you all in a few minutes. Hello, everybody online. Welcome, welcome. Thank you all so much for joining this hybrid live stream. We got a bunch of people here in person, getting settled in, getting food, getting drinks. So let's give them a moment. My hope is to start at 6:10 over here. Thank you all online for joining. Hey, everyone online. We just got a few more people here settling in. Thank you all so much for your patience. We're super excited to get started. Give it like 5 more minutes. Well, we'll start at 6:15. Thanks all. Hey, everyone. Hey, everyone in the room. Let's get started. Someone trying to get in? Sorry. Oh, hello. Continue testing meetup? Yeah, welcome. T-shirt up for grabs. We got beer and wine in the fridge and food. Help yourself. Thanks for coming. Yeah, hey everyone, welcome to Continuous Testing Meetup San Francisco. Thank you all so much for coming in person. We also have a bunch of people online, so this is our first time trying a hybrid thing. It was extremely difficult to figure out how to coordinate the audio and the video together. It was more difficult than building software. It took hours really. So thank you for Marcus for the help there. And thank you all so much for coming. Today we got two awesome presentations. One of them I'll do talking about AI Unleashed from idea to production. And then we'll have an awesome panel discussion with Marcus Merrell and Titus Fortner. They're going to talk about maximizing QA value, surviving and thriving in this crazy environment. And we'll do Q&A. Anyone online can drop your Q&As in the chat. I'll monitor them and we'll answer them at the end for both of the shows. Cool. Let's go ahead and do this. By the way, people online, can you all see the screen okay? Give me some thumbs up. People in person, if you want to give me thumbs up as well. Yeah. Awesome. It works. It works in person. Just waiting. There's like a 10-second delay between recording and people seeing it. Oh, awesome. Cool. All right, awesome. Let's go here. All right. AI Unleashed from idea to production. So, a journey that I started at the end of last year when ChatGPT came out. It was super hyped, very exciting, and I wanted to figure out, outside of all the hype, what are its real capabilities? What is it really capable of? What are its boundaries? What can it do? What can it not do? Instead of just seeing all these posts that keep saying how fantastic it is. And so I had an idea to build a vision board application. I love to look at vision boards, but all the apps suck. And so I'm like, oh, perfect. Let's see if I can have an AI help me build my vision board application while I'll also prepare a presentation. And so I'll take you all on that journey that I went through and show you what I learned. This is me, Nikolay Advolodkin. I'm a developer advocate here at Sauce Labs. I've been testing since 2008. I love testing. 2015 found Ultimate QA because I found that there wasn't enough good information for automated testing. And so I wanted to share my lessons learned and the journey that I've been on and help people all over the world to avoid my mistakes, which most of the time they don't listen to me anyway. And that's me, my wife, and my little dog Mia in Miami, where we live. So for me, the journey started, as I mentioned, at the end of last year. I did a first version of this presentation in February, and I got to use GPT 3.5. When I try to create the application, this is kind of the capabilities that I found that it had. Ultimately, being really good for like creative content creation, mediocre for web development. It was really bad at doing testing. The fact, especially that it was last trained in 2021, and this was at the time 2023, the APIs were really outdated, and so it had a really hard time giving you valid API usages in the applications. Since then, of course, we're now at GPT-4, drastically better. It's a larger model, improved understanding. It's been trained on more information. Ultimately, just a better experience. Sorry, 1 second. So, enough talk. Let's drive. By the way, all the images in this presentation are AI generated. So if we're trying to design a vision board, the first place we want to start is concept and design. So I asked ChatGPT and said, hey, I'm trying to build this vision board application. I wanted to have a 3x3 grid. I want it to be responsive. I want it to be fast. And I want it to be a good working app. Help me to design it. So this is the wireframe that it came up with for the application. Ultimately, I think it did a really good job in terms of designing what are the important components of the app, having a header, there's a main content area with a 3x3 grid, having a modal that you can open, you can click an image, the image will get enlarged so that you can visualize and imagine your goals coming true. Then it created me some user stories, which I also thought it did a really good job at. Talking about how it can register as a user, it can log in, it can add goals to the vision board, it can edit goals. Many of these user stories made sense. It also provided some requirements, talking about how it has a registration system for creating new user accounts, have the ability to add goals, including ability to add images, set due dates, write descriptions. The app must enable users to click on goal images to view them in full screen mode. Very important feature. So did a good job there as well. And it provided some design principles too. Mobile first approach, responsive design, simple clean interface, touch-friendly UI, and optimizing images so that the application is fast. And actually, it did a pretty good job at error handling as well. It provided me the code to create and build the application, and I would come across errors sometimes and drop those errors into ChatGPT. And ChatGPT provided me valuable feedback that actually allowed me to troubleshoot the error. And the feature that I really liked about this is over versus something like Stack Overflow, you can continue to have a conversation with ChatGPT. And so if your error is not fixed, you can say, hey, now I'm getting this error, and then it'll have that context, and then it'll be able to continue you down the right path until your error is fixed. It doesn't always work. Sometimes it works well. Sometimes it doesn't work well. But when it does, it's awesome. So this is the first version of the application. This one is using Next.js. So you can see kind of how it looks. Vision board up here with the title, and then it has the goal and the date and some placeholder thumbnails. And I found it really cool. ChatGPT actually generated all this by default. I didn't have to specify any of this. And I like how it provided me a bunch of defaults, placeholders. So it made it kind of a really quick way to iterate on an application or an idea that you might have. Here's the third version. So what you'll see here is the goal opening up in full screen mode. It's not really full screen, but it's okay. One interesting thing you'll notice here is that it does have arrows to go side to side to view through the goals, and it has a close button in the upper right. However, where it made the mistake was it made the arrows black on top of a black background, and so we couldn't see those arrows until it was actually in full screen mode. And so that was one thing that I found was interesting. I saw it in the code and I'm like, where are the arrows? And I couldn't see them until we go into mobile view. So I gave it an okay. I said it did okay there. If functionally it works, it's not perfect, but it's a good start. Here's the code. I'm not a front-end developer by trade. I'd say more back-end development stuff, but I know enough JavaScript to make these interesting presentations, and this looks good to me. Christian here, he's a great JavaScript developer. What do you think of this code? Perfect. Christian said it's perfect. He said that his job was taken. His if you want the deployed version of the application, you can grab it. It's hosted on Netlify. It's not my server. It's Netlify's server. Do your worst. Did it come up for you all? Nice. Beautiful. Enjoy it. Visualize your goals. This isn't the fully finished application. It has the features that it has. Like you can only modify the goals by actually going into the JavaScript code and modifying them in there. But I only had so much time. So what about the testing? The testing is what we are all about here at Sauce Labs. How did it do there? First, I said, write me some Cypress end-to-end tests. And so these are the tests it wrote. Should display all goals. Should open a modal when clicking on a goal image. Should close the modal when clicking on a close button. And should navigate through the goals in the modal. Good tests, I believe. Hey, welcome. Good tests, I believe. 2 of them passed. 2 of them failed. The 2 that failed actually failed because of bad locators. The modal, the way the tree was structured, the locators that it picked were really bad. And so it couldn't find those locators. So here you'll see that Cypress end-to-end test running, and you'll see it failing. I think this is ultimately, these are really good because functionally the tests were correct. And it was cool that it came up with the test on its own. And the locator thing, it was really easy to fix. You just tell it to provide a unique attribute to those locators that are important for the tests, and then it could do it. But that wasn't my goal here. I was trying to see what can it really do without much guidance from me. And so you'll see those locators that it tried to pick were not the best. Same thing with the playwright end-to-end test. Also did a good job writing the actual tests. The tests make sense. Functionally, this is something that you would want to test. Also failed for the same exact reasons, bad locators. Then I said, okay, how about let's try an accessibility test. This one it failed on. It had a totally improper library that it was trying to use incorrectly, so that did not work. Here's some playwright tests running. Yeah, so you'll see it validated all the cards are there, and then it opened up the card, and then it gets stuck on this modal, unable to navigate through the visions. All right, what about continuous integration? So I wanted, of course, to build, test, and deploy this application. So first I tried GitHub Actions, and said, let's help me to create a GitHub Actions pipeline in order to deploy it. It failed. First, it was failing because of the tests. I ended up commenting out the tests, but then it still couldn't figure out where exactly the executables were in order to deploy. Netlify, the same thing. So it was not able, as you see, it's not able to find the right directory in order to be able to deploy. Azure DevOps, same thing, failing for the tests initially. And then I commented out the tests, but it still couldn't deploy it afterwards. Couldn't find the directory. So some areas that it can improve. One thing I found that was interesting was it was still using an old Cypress structure when it provided some instructions. So it was interesting because the installation went well, but then the instructions to navigate and use the tests did not work well. And then, of course, the app design, which you all saw, is the arrows that it decided to put black arrows on a black background. That made it hard to see until you were in mobile view. So here's a summary table of where GPT-4 stands today. Last I did this a few months ago. Overall, I think it's really good at like greenfield content creation kind of stuff, creating simple web components. It's also really good at. So I tried this with 3 different front ends. I tried it with React, Next, and Remix. It did really good with React, did okay with Next, and did the worst with Remix. But I think Remix is the newest, and so it had the hardest time trying to use it. The testing, I gave it an okay because the tests were functionally correct and ran, but couldn't get the locators right. And then in CI, it still continues to fail. It was a problem in 3.0, 3.5. It continues to be an issue in 4.0. So maybe a question that a lot of people are asking, a lot of developers are curious about, is whether AI will replace development teams. And I have a really cool clip here from Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI.
Initial thoughts.
If you had asked me 10 years ago, I would have said first AI is going to come for blue collar labor. Basically, it's going to drive trucks and do factory work, and it'll handle heavy machinery. Then maybe after that, it'll do like some kinds of cognitive labor, but not. It won't be off doing what I think of personally as the really hard stuff. It won't be off proving new mathematical theorems. It won't be off discovering new science. Won't be off writing code. And then eventually, maybe, but maybe last of all, maybe never, because human creativity is this magic special thing. Last of all, it'll come for the creative jobs. That's what I would have said. Now, it looks to me like, and for a while, AI is much better at doing tasks than doing jobs. It can do these little pieces super well, but sometimes it goes off the rails. It can't keep like very long coherence. So people are instead just able to do their existing jobs way more productively. But you really still need the human there today. And then B, it's going exactly the other direction. You could do the creative work first, stuff like coding second. They can do things like other kinds of cognitive labor third, and we're the furthest away from like humanoid robots.
So
hard for me to add a lot more than the CEO of OpenAI, but yeah, that has been my experience as well. Is exactly that, is creative work. ChatGPT does a fantastic job at, and I've been using it all the time to do creative work, social media posts, generating blog posts, emails, and so on. It's getting better at doing software development tasks, as you all saw here. Now there are a lot of new AI tools coming out that you can put together in your ecosystem that will help you to be a more efficient developer. And so I think AI will change our jobs. and that's normal of technology, right? Normal of all innovations. They will come. It's cool, but it's also scary because it's change. And so, but ultimately, that technology ends up creating a new world and new jobs that that we didn't imagine before. And so I don't know what that will look like. I think in the shorter term, maybe a few years, I imagine us as developers managing a bunch of bots together and orchestrating those bots to release software to production faster. And maybe longer term, I don't even know what we'll be doing. It'll be different though. One cool thing I discovered last week, just as an example of how rapidly this field is progressing, was I used GitHub Copilot. Here is the file from the vision board that I created. This has pretty much all the main code in it. Just walking through that code here. But what I used GitHub Actions for was you can select all of this code. You can right click Copilot and you can generate tests. And it does a fantastic job actually at generating tests, and we'll see them in a moment. So there are the tests. If we take a look at them, like in terms of what are they testing, should have 6 goals. Seems like a reasonable test to me. Should have a valid image URL for each goal. Seems like a valid test to me. I'm looking at a table of testers over here. Should have a description for each goal. Yeah, Marcus is giving me thumbs up. And should have a valid date. And there they are. So that's interesting, right? So it's already making our jobs a little bit different in terms of what if we don't have to write tests anymore as developers and AI can do it for us? Or is this enough testing? It covered all the happy paths. What about the edge cases? I think it leaves some interesting questions. I have more questions than answers, and I unfortunately will leave you all with that as well. Is what will software engineering look like in the future? I think it's important for us to keep talking about this, keep figuring this out, because all of our jobs and livelihoods are at stake. What will humans do when majority of our tasks are automated? When AI can write our social media, write our emails, when everybody has the power to be able to build, test, and deploy their own SaaS applications from your own computer and just with the power of the internet, what will we be doing as human beings? How will economies adapt to that decreased human labor requirements? And how do we ensure that AI systems are secure and not prone to malicious use? This one is really important because the way technology typically moves, right, is it starts to be expensive, then it becomes cheap, and then it propagates through the rest of the world until a point where it's so cheap that everyone in the world has access to it. So what will happen when everyone in the world has access to powerful AIs and anyone with enough motivation can do horrible things with it? How do we prevent that from happening?
This is little Nikolay. Thank you for joining my talk. This video message was created using DD and Resemble. I showcasing the potential of AI technology in communication. Please scan the Q code to stay connected. Have an awesome day.
It's definitely creepy, but this is a picture of me as a little boy when I used to live in Uzbekistan. Got the picture, used ChatGPT to generate the script, used Resemble to clone my voice, and then used DID to make the image talk with my voice. And so, yeah, it's interesting because this will evolve, and it already has. And yeah, I mean, ultimately, I know. I feel like I posed a lot of questions today that maybe are concerning, maybe are not. I think The future is bright. It will be different. A lot of people say that AI will create a more prosperous future than ever before. And I think that as technologists, it's our responsibility to ensure that we help to guide and create that prosperous future for all of us. So thank you. I'll open it up to any questions. Yes, Christian.
Do you have a list of all the tools that you use to stay alive?
Stay alive?
I mean, for doing your job. Like other tools that you use in your talk, for instance, or other. Do you have a list of them?
I don't have a list of them, but you want me to make you a list? Christian asked if I have a list of tools to do my job, AI tools that I use to do my job. I don't. Are you asking for some recommendations? ChatGPT, great, daily use. Harpa AI is a Chrome extension, uses ChatGPT behind the scenes. Harpa AI is fantastic because it's in a Chrome extension, so it knows about all the web pages you're on. And so now you can interact with web pages. If there's a topic you don't understand, you can highlight it and ask it to start digging in further. Or you can highlight it and ask it to generate an article. Or you can, for example, for some of my YouTube videos, it transcribes my YouTube videos and then gives a point-by-point summary with the timestamps. And then it can put that back into the description of the YouTube video so that people like you can more easily access the timeline of the YouTube videos. And then the other one that I really like that I recently found, Codium AI. It's a Visual Studio extension you add to your IDE, and it also generates tests, but it also gives you descriptions of tests. And it even gives you like best practices of how to do testing. Those are like my favorite ones. And ChatGPT can now do image generation. And so all those images you saw were AI generated. Harpa.ai. Harpa, HARPA.ai. Yeah. Yeah, you're welcome. I'll take one question here from virtual. I'll alternate so virtual people are not feeling left behind. So Chris Richardson asks, what about maintainability of the generated code? So I think he was referring to my application. I think that the maintainability of the code was good. The tests were simple. They were straightforward. There was nothing complicated there. What will it look like over time as our tests evolve and AI doesn't know about our tests evolving? I don't know. I think maybe I would just copy and paste those tests into ChatGPT and said, clean them up, improve them. Maybe I would use Codium AI and say, improve it. In Codium AI, there's an enhance and improve command. So I would probably try those. I haven't tried that, so I can't speak very confidently on that. Yes, Katie.
You mentioned that you could easily find the locators for the mobile test, but not the web test. I think we see all in technology, mobile enhancements are getting developed at a greater rate than web. Where do you see that playing a part in AI in terms of like browser compatibility or things of that nature when it comes to AI and running tests?
So Katie asks, she says that I showed that we were able to find locators for mobile tests, but not web tests. Yeah, I got to correct you on that. So it was all web. It was all web. I just showed a mobile view of the web response. So it was all web tests. Does that change your question?
Yes, I guess if it was a mobile view, how do you imagine AI keeping up with the different requirements? And do you imagine web falling behind in comparison to mobile? Because I think we do see stage development being greater when it comes to mobile view or mobile.
So Katie asks whether how I see AI keeping up with mobile development over web development. Well, in terms of like responsive web applications, typically it's the same code base. So I see it keeping up fine. Where I think the challenges become, and as they have been, which is one of the values of like visual testing, is the responsive nature of the applications. And so as they go from big to small, how do elements shift around? Are there weird cutoff points and so on? And so, yeah, that's a great question. Can AI generate visual tests, or can AI guide us to know about potential issues as our web applications are resized? Those are great questions. I don't know. I'll try it for you. Yes, sir. I told it. Yes, I tried three different apps. I asked for a React app, saw the output. Okay, cool, great, it worked. So I tried a next app, and then tried a Remix app. That's a great question. I don't know. I haven't tried that. Yeah, I mean, if it's JavaScript, I would have just used NCU to update the packages, which is a command line tool to update packages. So I don't know if AI is needed there. No, it did not. It was never able to finish CI. I had to zip up the code, drop it into Netlify to make the published version of the application for you all. Yeah, you're welcome. Let me see here. Yeah, for any of you all online, please feel free to drop your questions and we'll happily answer. Anyone else have it? Yes. Marcus asks how I found my prompting journey evolving over time. Yeah, that's a great question. At first, I think just like a lot of us, a novice, and just was like, what is the answer of 2 + 2? Oh, 4. Thank you. Great. It works. Wow. Then I started to maybe go on the next phase where you ask it a simple question, it gives you an answer. You're like, okay, good, but now I need this instead. And so you ask it another question. And so you do this kind of back and forth until you get the outcome. And now I try to basically think about the prompt as almost like a little software program where I think, okay, what are the requirements of everything I need? I generate a prompt that will produce me the exact output that I want. And then that way in one shot, I can get closer to the result that I want. And then if I need to tweak it, I'll go back and retweak the prompt. And so that's where I'm at now, is like, think about the prompt first and then deliver that to the AI. Marcus asks if I ever broke ChatGPT. I think yeah, sometimes. Sometimes I feel like it just gives up and just tells you bullshit. Yeah, just like, whatever, dude, leave me alone. You're banned. Yeah. So we have a question here online. Brian Stone asks, with ChatGPT, one second, throw it up online. With ChatGPT being trained on code found all over the internet, should companies be worried about employees utilizing AI responses that may not properly cite licensed code? That's a great question. I would ask the open source developers here, Titus and Christian and Marcus. What do you all think? Do you all want to come up and take the mic? Come on, Marcus. Come on, Marcus. We got a surprise guest. Come here with the camera.
My answer is short. I think it depends on the license. Some code is absolutely adaptable and freely usable without any sort of attachment or what they call a viral carry forward to the things, and also some are completely available for commercial use and alteration and no citation needed. There aren't very many that are that free, but if it's under the MIT license, that's probably going to be just fine. If it's under some other kind of license, yeah, I actually worry a lot more about authorial protection of things like, it can give you exact quotes from copyrighted works that were written in the last 10 years. And that's a lot more problematic to me than something like code that might be shared. Now, I have never uploaded any form or fashion of Sauce Labs code to ChatGPT, but if one were to do that, you're absolutely unless you configure it correctly, and I believe you can talk more about this, unless you configure ChatGPT, it will potentially put that into the big reservoir in order to be pulled from to train new algorithms. And that's definitely something you should worry about. I think more so than open source. It can do that. I don't believe we've had any. I mean, ChatGPT is still stuck in time there, but they are sucking up information to train future models. So it's a risk. And as we're about to talk about, risk is a huge, huge endeavor in this whole thing. So, yeah, you want to talk more about how to protect yourself? You know that the settings and all that.
Yeah, sure. You can't protect yourself in ChatGPT, from what I understand. It will be trained on your data, so don't upload private data there that you don't want ChatGPT being trained on. There are enterprise-ready models. Microsoft, for example, has one where it uses OpenAI. Of course, Microsoft has a big portion of OpenAI. It uses OpenAI behind the scenes, but you can configure it to use only your data for training, and that data will never be leaked out into the world. Of course, it costs more money, but enterprises love that because now they can train their own AI models on their own data and know it's secure. We have Sohe Buzaman asks, are there any notable organizations leveraging AI for testing? And do you have any success stories or metrics to share? I don't have any such stories. Does anyone here have any such stories? I think we're at the beginning. Like, AI is the hype right now. Venture capital money is flowing into companies. I've seen many AI companies sprawling up. Some of them seem like they're doing cool stuff. Hard to figure out. It's early. Other ones are not doing such cool stuff. So I think it's too early to tell. But I think this will affect everything in software development. It will affect how we do our jobs. It will affect how we do testing. And so I don't think it's going to be too long before testing is significantly impacted by AI. Any questions? Any more questions from the audience before we go to our next talk? All right, awesome. Thank you all so much. Virtually, we are going to do our second talk, which is with Marcus Merrell and Titus Fortner, doing a discussion about QA value, maximizing it, and surviving in this crazy world.
Thank you. Can everyone see us? We got 2 cameras on us now. Is that one not working, or?
That one is working.
All right, cool.
No, hold on.
Oh, I'm backstage.
Yeah,
That one's
you're
backstage.
backstage.
So you point that back to you, and then we will go on stage. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Everyone grab a beer.
Slowly poison.
Everyone is hydrating with alcohol. So we'll be right back.
I don't know. I listened to a podcast where they're talking about your open source project from being used by AI. I'm like, why do you like? Is that the whole point, that people can use the code that I'm writing?
Yeah, I
to do
mean,
interesting
there are definitely
things?
some licenses that specifically guard against that. Like,
But how would you like? So one, how would you know? Like one, I don't know. I guess unless it's copyleft, unless you're like
Right.
so adamant that nothing I do should ever be used for profit in a way that can't be shared by other people.
yeah, I can't think of an example. I mean, I know that there's always been a lot of concerns around the GPL type licenses that
Right.
sort of attach themselves,
Right.
and
Copyleft.
they get. But I don't. I mean, in spirit, I absolutely agree. I think the commercial software leaking is a much bigger concern, because like, imagine if someone wanted to develop a tool that was based on a proprietary idea, and I want to do my own version of that, and it turns out that the person who developed the commercial tool
Did it with
ChatGPT, but
and-
they never released that part, but they
So-
put the product
so
out,
this
and then
is-
you can just
So this is the real concern about shipping ChatGPT code straight to prod.
right. Yeah. It's funny, we put out that survey that
Right.
I'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're gonna have to pass this thing back and forth. If I'm holding the microphone, can people on stream hear Titus?
No, they cannot.
They cannot. Okay, so it's a very directional. Okay. Okay,
So you're
cool.
saying I'm not loud enough, Nikolay.
The microphone says you're not.
I won't redline the microphone and try to do that. Okay. So yeah. I like the nameplates on the image there. That's really slick.
Yeah, the Restream StreamYard is really nice.
Oh yeah.
I'm making you guys.
We've done this before.
Well, aren't you going to moderate?
I will. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I just don't.
Yeah. We're audio live.
Audio is live. Oh.
We're going to go take a group photo. We'll be right back.
Christian? All right, everyone please? You, middle layer, and then Claire, you can come a little bit forward.
Show the people in the front. Don't you guys want to see them? Awesome. Thank you all. We had to pause for a quick picture.
Thank you for standing by. Hello, welcome.
Whenever you are ready.
So we said a 5-minute break. I want to make sure we respect that.
Oh, okay.
I can't read the chat.
I will read the chat for you.
I love robots with glasses. It's just like the ultimate hipster.
These are just cosmetic. These make me look smarter. All right. I guess we can get started. How many? So Sauce Labs is fundamentally a testing company. Are we testers here, or are we more developers here for the AI stuff? Testers?
Testers,
Any testers?
developers, people wandered in off the street.
All right, cool. So even if you're not a tester, you still ostensibly, I would assume, work in software. And if not, this is going to be real interesting. And I definitely want it to be participatory. This isn't just a panel with me and Titus. This is intended to be a discussion about everyone, because I've been a career tester for 24 years, and my 25th anniversary is going to be in January. So pretty soon I'll be able to say, yeah. And it is a strange thing for someone to choose that profession. But in that choice, I've seen some shit. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit, but mostly I wanted to sort of have a conversation here about the kinds of things that are happening right now to influence not just the testing profession, but the concept of testing, somewhat related to AI, and how it is, to put a unvarnished term around it, very much under threat right now. I haven't done this yet. What I want to do sometime in the next couple of months is put together a series of slides showing all that I can find of the massive, life-changing software glitches we see out there in nature all the time. They happen weekly. Yeah, in nature, you know. Notoriously, there was an incident involving a young lady who's dating Travis Kelce. I don't remember her name, where she announced a tour and she crashed the site. And just by announcing the tour, she crashed the major ticket vendor. And I can't remember names of anyone tonight. I'm just really just okay. All right. And so clearly we're shipping a lot of software and we're not super testing it. And to rub lemon juice into this wound, we're laying off the entire profession of quality assurance people all over the place. Why? Now, that's a legitimate question. I have some hypotheses, but I actually want to hear, why do we think that we are inundated with bugs? There are oceans of examples out there of horrible things happening and lives being lost as a result of software glitches. There are fewer testers than, any time in recent memory. And everyone I know who's in the testing profession feels a little nervous right now. So we need more testing. Bad things are happening. Any ideas? Shift left mentality. Help me understand. So I'm a little bit playing dumb here, but help me understand more about that.
Yeah, so it's basically where we
try to, I'm going to repeat this as you go, where we try to catch defects earlier
by including that as a part of your development tasks.
or like developers doing testing earlier in the process so that they can test earlier. So when in your experience did shifting left begin? 10 years ago. And the form it took was presumably more developers writing. So have developers consistently, in your experience, been writing unit tests? And then recently, as part of Shift Left, took on more responsibility around integration and like functional testing?
Well, that's the problem.
That's the problem. Right. So you're a developer. Do you like doing that work?
Well, I'm a product manager, but I'm also a developer. I'm also a tester.
Okay. Yeah.
I identify the tester. I think the issue is probably more with, I should say, I don't know, like most folks, nothing bad about testers.
Most folks hate testing. Newsflash. Yeah. So what we've done is we've taken the thing that is the product that is the reason that we exist, and we have decided that it's okay to put it out in the world with glitches because it's cheaper. And as a corollary to that, we've told our developers, do more of this thing that you hate to do, that we're paying you way much to do, but do more of it because we don't want to pay more other people over here to do it. So it's okay if glitches happen. Does that scan for everyone? I mean, I feel like that is the reality that we are seeing. And I'm just kind of wanting to question it a little bit. Like, is it just that we think it's not going to happen to us, or that the glitch isn't going to be that bad when it happens? It's not going to be the kind of glitch that takes down a whole company, which absolutely has happened, especially in like cryptocurrency companies.
All right, so who's using a Ticketmaster competitor right now as a result of that?
Ticketmaster's a monopoly.
I know. So
Yeah.
Right, how many glitches has a social media company formerly known as Twitter had in the last year? Is that the reason people are leaving Twitter? Right. So what we're seeing is a lot of like, and this is kind of gets to the risk profile thing that Marcus and I have talked about a few times. What is your company doing, and what risks are there in releasing a bug? How catastrophic can it be? And you can just brush it off because it doesn't matter. I think I saw someone posted something to me today, and I was busy at a conference, so not really paying attention, about how much money Walmart lost on Thanksgiving last year or something like that because the site went down. Real things that are costing real dollars, even if you don't lose customers in long term. So figuring out what can your company get away with. But I do think there's a lot to this rosy view of it's not going to be us. Like, we'll be fine. Like, it's hard to really gauge the risk until the bad thing has happened. Like most of the time when bad things happen, the people that it happened to didn't really plan for it, didn't expect it. It just kind of came out of nowhere, and they happen to be the unlucky ones. There's a certain survivorship bias with a lot of these things.
I'll add. Most people suck at threat detection. Most people suck at risk assessment. I think where I'm heading with all of this, in asking kind of intentionally dumb questions, is I think that testing as a profession and as a mindset has not at all engaged with the concept of risk, in my experience. Testers are generally not terribly appreciated when they come walking down the hall and the developer sees them. They're like, oh God, what are they bringing to me now? Why is that? Shouldn't they be happy when the tester's walking down the hall? They're unhappy because I think, and I'm my 24-year career, I'm sort of impugning myself. I've brought a lot of BS to developers over the years. Just a ton of stupid detail. These things are just a little bit off. And it's like, and I think I didn't ask earlier in my career the question often enough. If I bring this to a developer, are they going to stop what they're doing and fix this bug? Up to actually the better question to ask is, if we ship the software with this bug, is anyone going to care? So we, in our pursuit of the mighty code coverage metrics, we are seeking a trophy. We're seeking some sort of number, or the CIO has asked us to make a number, like make sure that guarantee me that your code coverage numbers are 100%, without regard to see the pain that we go through here, without regard to the priorities or the risks or what you're actually trying to do. Now, I worked at a company called Retell Me Not. It's on my LinkedIn profile. It's public. We spent a long time automating tests for something called the profile editor page. It's a page within the product where you can upload your avatar image, you can edit the picture, you can draw little things on it, you can edit your zip code, your email address, and you can do all sorts of stuff to promote your social media. And I was so proud of the team because they did this huge amount of output in just a couple of weeks. 50, 60 tests, Selenium tests. They were green, they were stable, they worked every single time. And I was talking to someone in the business intelligence group about the great work my team had done. And he was like, why in the hell would you spend 150 person hours on tests that test something that less than 0.5% of our users ever see, and which has never produced a dime of revenue to this site? And I'm like, well, I'm going for 100% code coverage. And they're like, well, we lost 200,000 last week because we didn't do our last attribution cookie on the third offer on the right in Chrome 117. We lost money because I was over here, because I cared about code coverage when I should have cared about protecting the damn revenue. If you're in healthcare, if you're insurance, if you're in medical hospitals, if you're launching a space shuttle, these are very, very different kinds of questions to navigate. What are you trying to test? What should you be doing? And for the developer who's being dragged into the testing, I mean, it's kind of a nightmare because they don't even have training to talk about things like cyclomatic complexity and boundary conditions and that kind of thing. So you're bringing them into a conversation they never wanted any part of, and we're getting rid of the specialist who also wasn't working on the right thing. And it's led to this kind of horrific condition where there's a whole bunch of really smart, talented people who don't have jobs anymore, who also weren't testing the right thing when they were there, because either they didn't have the right training, they weren't under the right directive, or we as an industry just don't talk about this stuff. We just don't talk about this stuff. I don't know how many testing conferences I've been to over the last 15 years, but I've not really heard that many talks on this topic. It's always, how do we increase the coverage? How do we choose better tools? How do we develop better tools? There are 40 companies out there using AI to generate test cases, and 2 of them talk about things like intent and risk. We're one of them, by the way. So it's a ridiculous proposition that we worked ourselves into as a profession, and that's the primary thing I'm trying to work on right now. So, kind of open it back up. What are you seeing out there? What are we testing that we should? What are we not testing that we should be testing? Are we protecting the revenue? Are we going for a trophy? I'm curious. Anyone online? Nikolay, do we have any comments online?
We have a question, but it might be from the last talk.
Okay.
You wanna still take it?
Well, I mean, I think that the intersection of AI and testing is very important because like I said, I've been in this career a long time, and since before I got into this profession, I've been promised magic in the form of things that will use record and playback. There's model-based testing. There's AI generated. There's BDD. There's all sorts of ways to generate testing, and they're all smoke and mirrors. Like the most successful one I see out there is actually a company called Mabel that I actually like quite a bit. We have several customers who have been using them for years. Most of the other companies, not so much. They're shelfware. And when they say AI, you can be almost certain that they don't mean LLM. They mean statistical modeling, which to me is impressive enough. They should just say statistical modeling because it's interesting, but it still doesn't get to risk. LLMs have helped with that. Yes?
I'm not a developer or a customer, but I've worked in healthcare for 15 years, and I've done some risk management myself. And what I'm thinking is, we've always been stuck with the residual risks of the business, of the industry, and COVID has just thrown a curveball to us. And
She's saying that the risk profile of her healthcare business fundamentally changed as a result of COVID. And at this point, there isn't enough historical data to even understand the new risks. Yeah, I mean, it's really, really interesting, changing risks. And we're starting to think about this a lot in terms of our, like, just the conversations that we have every day as testers is, depending on what industry am I in, what I find a lot of people do when I'm talking to customers in the wild is they hire a tester because automated testing professionals are hard to hire. That person brings the tools and philosophies and strategies from the company that they worked at before. So if they worked at healthcare and they're going to e-commerce, they're coming from a place where PII is mission number one, making sure claims are processed and workflows are taken through their logical consequence, number one. Number two, user experience is kind of important, but like it's not going to tank the business. But e-commerce, if you don't have user experience, nobody's going to come back to your site. They're going to go to your competitor because it's easy to do. And yet the tester brings the wrong philosophy to the job and starts thinking about tooling and not strategy. And that's, I'm curious, do we see that? Does that track with other people's experience? Anything to add on that?
We have a comment from online.
Great.
Yeah. Alan Lowe says, he says, spot on, Marcus. We're far too often redirected from the important over the latest urgent thing, which always seems to underdeliver.
Agreed, Alan. Thanks, Alan. We know Alan. He's great. Yes, Christian.
Yeah, I think it depends on who you ask this question, right? Like, as a developer, I'm very much concerned about the test coverage that I have for my unit tests or component tests, whatever.
Christian points out that unit testing is coverage is fairly important. I totally agree.
As a developer, but as a business person, as a product manager, they might be interested in other like aspects of the software in the whole as a whole, and so do they have the right tools to test that aspect? Because
right.
I'm a developer, should not be concerned.
Yeah, Christian, as a developer, saying shouldn't be concerned about the tools themselves and should hand that to other professionals who specialize in that kind of thing. May not have the full perspective of the business or product person in order to be able to answer these kinds of questions. And it's do you consider testing to be a distraction? No, I don't mean unit testing. I mean beyond unit testing, like the business value. Business value testing seems to be a distraction.
Not having the cookie track after the
Right.
page visit, like, I would not. This is something that the product person needs to be concerned with.
Right.
Does the product person have the right tools to maybe test that?
Do the product people have the right tools to test the analytics? In my experience, not necessarily. Probably not. no. But in my experience, also QA people are never even told about analytics until they break, and then they're like, "Why didn't you catch that?" Like, I didn't know about it. Yeah, communication issue. Yes.
Even if you reach like 100% test coverage, there are, I mean, just like when there's like code quality of code, there should be quality of text, and how to measure the quality of text.
Yeah. So the question was about code coverage versus quality of the tests for that code, and I wrote a recent article talking about how unit tests are overrated, partly as a result of that. When your metric is code coverage, you're now gaming that metric by calling the method and not making an assertion on the result of it, or just passing in unnecessary things just to exercise something.
And also like the code generated by the AI for tests,
Mhm.
I don't think it has the reason that human being can look back. So that's what differentiates.
Yeah, the consideration is whether AIs can reason about the intent for the test, and if that's sufficient for being able to properly evaluate the application itself. And I do think this is one of those things where we do get focused on like, as you're pushing responsibility of testing to the developer, now the developer, similar to how a tester from a previous company brings their tooling and baggage from the previous company and tries to apply it to a new situation, it's the same kind of things for developers who have a certain background and a certain tool set and certain things. They're now being told that they have to also do testing things, and so they're bringing their experience and they're coming to testing and saying, wow, testers really put up with all of this? No, we're going to change this, we're going to do something different, we're going to focus on different things. I don't have time for that. And so we are seeing quality change quite a bit, and especially if we're starting to see people, like, what are people using ChatGPT for? Things that they don't want to spend time doing, things they don't care about, right? Well, so that's the thing. But what's this comes back to a survey we sent out asking people how many people use AI for production code, and how many people will commit ChatGPT generated code to production without testing it.
Wasn't it like 24%?
It was high.
67%.
Yeah. Well, it was
67 will push code to production, but
like 24%,
not
like
necessarily from ChatGPT. ChatGPT was a subset of
whatever it was an unacceptable number of people that were pushing code directly to production without testing it. And some of that could be legitimate if you're just like little things that you're like, oh yeah, that's a one-liner, that's the change. But so the question is, how many developers that are now responsible for testing who didn't want to do it in the first place, aren't interested in these things, are going to be like, I'm just going to have ChatGPT generate my tests and we'll go forward from there. And there's something interesting about having tooling that's supposed to tell you the correctness of your application that can't verify its correctness. When does I mean, I know this is something that we're working on in our efforts too, is how do we make it easy to use AI in sensitive situations where it doesn't end up hallucinating? Like, how do we protect against that so that the AI doesn't, yeah, okay, I wrote 10 tests for this, and like 2 of them make no sense at all and are testing something completely unnecessary or the wrong thing. Yes, Gabe?
Sorry, Katie. We have another audience on the wire. So here, let me ask. Pradeep Kumar asks, or he states, management thinks to reduce costs using automation and AI where they ignore quality fundamental.
They get what they pay for.
One more. I think Jason Baum, he says 61% apparently. I guess use AI generated code. There, exactly. And Jason Baum also asks, the GBB report said that 67% are pushing to prod without testing. I was surprised that Titus wasn't shocked by the number, and when he and I discussed it on test case scenario, but wondering, Marcus, your take.
My take on the 65% pushing to production without testing. It sounds low. Have you used some of the software that's out there? How many here have not been infuriated by an app on their phone in the last 48 hours? Not been? Okay, no hands are up. Yeah, how many of you not been? Like, I've been. Maybe I'm asking the question wrong. I'm just like,
how angry are you with your app?
Constantly. I'm angry to the point where I use like 4 apps ever. Yeah, right. And yeah, so it's rough out there. Katie.
We're talking about the quality of your test suite. When you think about the metrics, are you thinking about like efficiency, velocity, the test runtime, coverage? Like, what do you think as we go into the future of AI? What are the most important multiple metrics to judge test quality?
What are the most important multiple metrics, like in a constellation, that we can use to sort of tell us about quality? Test speed,
like
pass rate.
Coverage.
Right. Yeah.
Various things.
Yeah.
What do you both
Yeah, I'll take for a second, and I'll pass it to Titus. I do think it is going to be context related to your business, and I think it's going to have to do with a little with what the ultimate goal is. Your business like revenue focused, or is it does it report in quarters? Does it make money little tiny bits at a time? Do you run experiments A/B style? Like, there's a whole bunch that could go into the equation. I think that code coverage is just to nip this in the bud, because everyone speaks the language of code coverage. Everyone understands that metric. That's why it's the most commonly used one. But just to sort of state it, code coverage is only there to tell you what you've missed. And it's only useful early in the process to tell you where your work is left to be done. Even if you have 100%, there's no guarantee of quality. It's just a quantitative statement, not a qualitative statement. So let's just like dispense with that. I think you got to use things, to your point, Katie, like pass rate. I have seen some horrible things, some horrible behaviors.
Yeah.
So there's a story I've told. Titus has heard this 4,000 times. There's a guy I ran into at a conference in March of this year, our year 2023, where there was a center of excellence where they ran 15,000 Selenium tests every single day. Already red flags. This is a Selenium board member saying people are using that tool too much, right? So 15,000 tests, and I said, "Oh, what's the pass rate? What's an acceptable pass rate?" I was expecting 98%. No. Pass rate was 70%. So on any given day, when these 15,000 tests are running, 4,500 of those tests are failing. And I guess my question is like, okay, the most critical test in that flow of those 15,000, the most critical one, the one that says this thing is going to explode if he said works at a bank, so it's not going to explode, but like this thing is going to really cause problems if it fails. And suddenly you have 4,501 tests that fail. Are you going to even notice it? So my first statement is, if you're running 15,000 tests and 4,500 of them are failing on a daily basis, those 4,500 tests that are failing, those aren't zero value. Those are negative value. They are lies. You are advertising coverage to your company, to your stakeholders, that you cannot actually make any quantitative statement about. I'm going to take it one step further. All of your tests are worthless. You might as well delete every single one of them and stop running them entirely. Now, if you just delete the failures and keep the 10,500 that pass, and they pass consistently, you're getting value. But if you mix those failures and those pass rates without any real analysis, worthless. And you're lying to your company about any sort of statement around the overall quality of your testing. Now, the best engineering company I ever worked at as a QA person, I'm not a QA person here, so no reflection on soft. Best company I ever worked at for QA, we had about 60 tests that would certify the build per commit. And every single one of those tests passed on every single build. And if they didn't, there was either an automation problem or there was a bug. And the developers, I didn't have to tell them to do this. I didn't have to shame them into it. They just naturally paid attention because they're green most of the time. Once a week, one of them turns red and everyone looks up. Oh my gosh, this is an unusual thing.
Yeah, there's one company I bet money on failing tests that it wasn't my code. It was a bug in production, or something had changed in production. I paid out once. Yeah, but most of the time. But that's how you get people. That's how you keep the animosity between testers and developers from developing, is provide value. Shocking answer. Provide value, and stop harassing developers, Marcus, with minor annoying things. But no, the
Totally disagree with you guys. No, I'm joking. I do agree with you guys, but I bet, and even sometimes I think, how do we provide value as testers? What does that even look like?
Sorry, I didn't finish. That's sort of part of Katie's question. I forgot to answer it, essentially. But what I would say is have a head nod agreement with your stakeholders. So the people who design your product and the people who actually, count the beans, people who understand what your product is supposed to do. Find out what are the top 3 things. 3 things. If these 3 things, any of these 3 things fail, it's all hands on deck. Stop everything. Rethink your life. This is absolutely it. Head nod around the table. What are the most important things that have to work on every single build? And just worry about that for a bit, a few weeks. Make it to where that is so rock solid. 3 to 5, I'm going to say it's going to amount to in the order of 24 tests. That's a very random number, but it feels about right to the companies I've been working at. 24 tests that will go through, and when they turn green, on any browser, on any device, the workflows that most matter in my company, cart checkout flow for e-commerce, or I can book a flight on a travel site, something like that. I can process a claim. I can schedule an appointment. Those are the most important things. Don't worry about editing the avatar. Let that can wait. Nobody cares about your picture of whatever. What's the most important thing? Advertise that on dashboards all over where people can see them, and make sure they turn bright red when they fail, and make sure that they're not going to fail for BS reasons. So how that translates into metrics, I mean, it's going to vary. But essentially, if everyone understands what's in the tests, then everyone can have a reason to care about the tests. Because if you do like I used to do and say, "Oh, I got 400 tests," like who cares? It's a number. It's a number, right?
Yeah, metrics gets really interesting, because whatever metric you pick, you end up gaming, right? I forget which law that is, but there's so many different laws that have been passing through. Like Conway's law of your code is going to reflect whatever structure your company has. So when you separate your testers and your developers to completely different camps, you're gonna have a very weird application. It's going to show up in the application itself just by design. But yeah, what is a bug? Like, that's not even something that we can all agree on. Example I like to give: what happens if you change a button from blue to green and that results in fewer people wanting to click it? You lose money. That's a bug. Would you have thought about that as a bug when you wrote your test? No. Did it tell the designer not to do that because that's a bug? No. But did it have a real world impact? So I think we're going to start seeing a feedback loop between the observability and the monitoring stuff that's going to become more and more common. I actually see AI doing more interesting things in that space than I do in the testing space. Is like, let's actually analyze what's happening in the real world so we can fix it faster, and then feed that information back to what kind of testing we actually really need to keep bad things from happening that have actually happened, instead of trying to guess. The joke about the unit testing, and like, does it take a 0? Does it take a null? Does it take a negative number? Does it take a banana? Right? Like, instead of trying to guess at what all things might happen, take a look at what actually happens and what things are actually causing issues, and feed that back into what you actually need to test. Because if we're just going off of code coverage, or we're essentially right now relying on testers' experience and frame of reference to know what to test. And once we start putting developers in charge of making those decisions when they don't have that background and they don't approach software from that perspective, and I would argue they should have been all along to a certain extent, because developers have gotten away with doing whatever they want and then putting the responsibility of finding their problems on someone else rather than really owning their responsibilities. And so I do think it's really important that we're shifting to putting onus on the developers to be accurate. But there's also a lot to be said for, those are real skills. Those are things people have to build up. There's knowledge that has to be gained, frames of reference to get that apply in different domains, different companies. So the bottom line is, what metrics? It's really hard to put a specific number on. It's hard to be data driven when it comes to that, which is why I am hoping to see this feedback loop of the observability to testing. I don't like unit testing as much, because I feel like it's missing. Most unit tests are either testing implementation details, so they will only fail if the code is changed, not because of system problem, or it's testing expectations. You've mocked something out so that and when it no longer represents the real world, your tests are passing, the real world's broken, and so you actually have a real problem. And it's surprising how many unit tests fall into one of those categories. So you're not actually getting useful information running it as a regression test suite. But yeah, we used to have one of the companies I worked at, I think we called it the green screen. So we had just a bunch of squares that were all green, and if anything failed, and we ran it like every 15 minutes, I think it was, like a couple dozen tests, and whenever one of them failed, it would turn red. And it was we had a rotating screens around the office, and so like it would pop up and like, oh no, it's red, and the CEO was like, I see the screen, it's got a red, what's going on? So it's nice to have visibility like that. But yeah, you take the ones that you care about and you run them very frequently. Run them when like, it's a way to kind of see. It's also a way to kind of see if production's something, like a system problem, not just software. If there's like a early warning of some kind for that. But yeah.
I remember very clearly 11, 12 years ago, Etsy did a presentation at Selenium conference 12 years ago. And they showed that they had 7 tests that they ran. 7 tests on every commit that went to production to say, this is good. If anything else fails, we'll fix it forward. 7 tests to guarantee that their users were still able to complete their fundamental workflows. Search for an item, put an item in the cart, buy something.
But that only works if you're able to fix problems when they come up, right? So like, this is a mean time to failure versus mean time to recovery approach, where like I like at conferences to like, all right, how many people are responsible for quality assurance and making sure bugs don't get into production? Like, everyone raise their hand. I'm like, all right, keep your hand up if you've never had a bug get to production in your code. And like, everyone laughs and put their hands out, right? I'm like, you've got one job, and that's to keep bugs from getting in. Like, and you're failing it. Like, it's going to happen. So what if we make it so that you want to have the tests that prevent the big catastrophic problems that go out, but then you need to be able to rapidly respond to problems in the real world, things that are actually show up that maybe you never would have thought to write that test, and then it causes a real problem, and then you need to be able to go back in and fix it. So that's the other part of the Etsy or any of the large companies that are doing the continuous delivery and the very, very frequent commits to production.
Cool. I think we're about out of time. Do we have any more questions online? I think we're just about out of time. But anything to add? This is always really interesting stuff to talk about, and we always want to hear more about what's going on in the real world, because we're in it for a long time, and sometimes we hear things that are surprising. But I think most importantly, AI is. I don't think anyone here fears it, right? It's going to be all right. I mean, ultimately, we should all be terrified, right? But I mean, like right now, it's okay. Yeah.
I think it's clear if it solves one of those big 7 problems in the world. Have you heard about the big 7?
I'm actually not familiar with this. I'm about to hand you the microphone. That sounds interesting. traveling salesman problem. If AI can solve the traveling or the trolley problem, was it? Yeah. Then yeah.
You build a new track right before.
Well, hopefully Cruise will at least solve that problem. Okay. But yeah, so this has been great. I really appreciate everyone. I'll give it to Nikolay back to.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you all so much in person. Thank you all online for joining. It's been such a wonderful conversation. Thank you, Marcus and Titus, for leading this discussion. Thank you, Sauce Labs, for hosting all of us and giving us free food and drinks. Did you all have a good time? If you did, shout. Yeah. If you're at home, please shout as well. Yeah. Thank you all so much. Yeah. Feel free to hang out and enjoy your time. Bye, everyone.